Today, I'm going to talk to you about what you need to know about buying a condo versus buying a house in Miami. And I'm going to get started now. Hey everyone, my name's Jamie Pretzi. I'm a real estate agent in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. I work with my husband, Ogden Pretzi, and our team. Today, I'm going to talk to you about buying a condo versus buying a house in Miami. But first, before I get started, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another update. We do put out new videos every week. Also, use the link in our information box and download our free relocation guide. We do update that guide page. It's brand new. So if you haven't seen it in a while, definitely make sure that you go to the description box and download it today. Also, in the description box, you can find all of our contact information. And if you would like to schedule a chat via Calendly, use my Calendly link and schedule a free buyer consultation or just a chat if you would like to chat real estate. Okay, let's get started. So all the time we have buyer consultations with people who are relocating to the city or just people who live here. Maybe they're renting or they live with family and they've decided to go out on their own and purchase real estate. And so the conversation often comes up about should they buy a condominium or should they buy a house? So I just thought I would share with you some of the information that we always talk to people about so that maybe if you are also in this dilemma, you can think through a little bit some of the details that we always talk about. Okay, so let's keep going. So we'll do condos and single family home pros and then condo and single family home cons. So we can go through and just help you think about a few of the details. The best thing about condominiums is typically the price point, the entry price point to get into a condominium is usually a little bit lower than a single family home. Also, the location and views or condominiums are typically better, obviously, because you can buy a condominium up in the sky. If location and views are very important to you, you really may want to consider a condominium purchase. Also, the location, I mentioned that again because, you know, the prime real estate, downtown Miami, Brickell, Coral Gables, Miami Beach, that's where you're going to find the bulk of your condominium buildings, the Upper East Side, Midtown, Wynwood, all of those areas. So you can typically buy a condominium in a very good location with a really good view at a more affordable entry price point than a single family home. Also, condominiums typically come with a low maintenance lifestyle. That's really one of the most significant advantages of owning a condominium. That's what I hear back all the time. You have people maintaining that property. Obviously, you have to sort of take care of the walls in, but exteriorly dealing with the pool or the maintenance, the roof, whatever, all of those things are covered by your condo association handling those maintenance issues for you. Also, if you are an amenity person and you like the pool and the spa and the gym and all those extra services, you can definitely find those more in the condominium features. Also, the high-rise buildings, not the low-rise buildings so much, but the condominiums that are the high-rise buildings, they typically have secure entry systems with 24/7 security and security personnel and surveillance cameras. And I think a lot of times that provides people a little bit more peace of mind. If you are really into parking and you don't want to park your car and you don't, for example, you're not able to buy a property that has a garage, well, condominiums may be a better option for you because you can, obviously get some type of assigned parking and park inside a garage, a secured garage, if you like. Okay, next, so let's talk about the house pros. So listen, houses typically have a little bit more square footage and obviously a bit more privacy than the condominiums. You're not really sharing walls with your neighbors in a house. Also, the outdoor living. A lot of people really like to barbecue and have parties and do their own thing without dealing with a condo association asking, what are they doing? Where's the fee for the deposit for the grill? Like those kinds of things. You're not going to have to deal with that if you buy a house. So if those kinds of things kind of get on your nerves, you may really want to consider buying a house instead of buying a condominium because condominiums here come with a lot of rules and regulations. Also, you'll have a lot more flexibility and customization when it comes to doing any maintenance issues or repairs inside your property, or if you want to change the floors or paint the walls, you're not going to have to dealing with the association, letting vendors in and out and dealing with scheduling that timing with those vendors. Typically, houses have a little bit better appreciation and long-term investment hold than condominiums, and that's because there are fewer single family homes than condominiums, and also single family homes have that cachet of the land and the house on the land, and there's definitely something to be said for that. The other great thing about single family homes is if you do need financing, you can probably get away with putting a little bit less money down than a condominium, which I will talk about that in just a minute, but that's just important to know, especially if you need financing. Now, it will cost you more with insurance and some of the closing costs dealing with insurance related items usually, but the down payment for condominiums, which I'll just go ahead and address that now, the financing for down payments are usually a little bit higher with condominiums because you also have to deal with the building getting approved by the bank and the underwriting team at the bank. And sometimes when you're getting financing, there can be a bit of unknowns dealing with the condo association and the financing. Resale value, and I guess I'll just start from the bottom now. Resale value and the market. I mean, listen, generally speaking, real estate appreciates over time, but single family homes are a little bit more stable than condominiums just because there are fewer of them. You also have the land and the house, and that's sort of like the dream, right? So a little bit different asset than the single family homes. And with condominiums, you also have limited control with regards to making decisions. You are part of that collective community, and when they start passing rules and regulations, those also become the ones that you are supposed to abide by. Also with budgets. So if you're not kind of like okay with people controlling some of these things like the monthly maintenance fees and the repairs and the HOA rules and regulations, then you really may want to consider buying a single family home instead of a condominium. Also, you have a lack of privacy and noise with condominiums because you're sharing walls and floors with people. And, that's just important to know. The thing with the condominiums that are the biggest cons that I see that people really just don't like is people just don't like the idea of someone, telling them what to do with their property. Although if you buy a single family home, whenever you're doing work or renovations, you may be required by the city to get permits, or you could actually live in a HOA community for single family homes, and they may have rules on what you can paint the property or not, or how your landscaping looks, or not. So condos just typically come with a bit more rules and regulations, but also you have someone who is helping you maintain the property, and you don't have to deal with all the vendors. You can just lock up and go about your way. So you just have to really decide if that's for you or not. With the housing cons, obviously you have higher maintenance and repair costs because you're actually doing it on your own. You're not part of a collective pool of people that can split the cost of those items. Also, you have a little bit more time and effort for upkeeping the property. Houses here, they require work throughout the year. The pools don't close. The landscaping doesn't stop. It's not like up north where everything shuts down in the winter. Here, the grass keeps growing all year long. So you definitely have to dedicate a little bit more time and effort to cleaning and yard work and general maintenance, or hire people to do that for you. But it definitely has to be taken care of throughout the year. Obviously, unless you have amenities built into that property, you'll have a little bit fewer amenities and shared facilities. Typically, the insurance is a bit more expensive with a single family home because you're not pooling together the insurance with the other people who live in the condominium building. For example, you're on your own with that. And like I said before, you could live in an HOA community where they have strict rules and regulations, and you can't just lock up and go. You have to kind of organize everything before you leave. A little bit different than a condominium, but these are the discussions that we have with our buyers every single day. Obviously, everyone has their own wish list and their own lifestyle and what they need to think about. But I just thought I would put this list together for you because these are some of the pros and cons that we talk about all the time. And I thought it might be interesting for you to also think about if you were also in that dilemma. A few things that you really want to consider before making a decision. Mainly, your budget is going to determine a lot of this, and how much you want to spend on a property every single month will really determine what type of property, whether you want to buy a condo or a home in Miami. Also, you typically have to put a little bit more money down when it comes to financing. For condominiums, for a primary residence, we're usually seeing around 20 to 25% down, just depending on the building. Second homes and investment properties, a bit more money. Again, you'll need to discuss that with a lender. We can talk about this more at a buyer consultation and kind of what's what, but it's really important to know there is a bit more money down required with financing when it comes to condominiums versus single family homes. You really need to assess your lifestyle. If you want to live in the city and you want to be where everything is happening and you're on a budget, probably a condominium is going to be a best fit. If you're a first-time home buyer and the thought of actually owning a single-family home is overwhelming, maybe you want to just start with a condominium to see if that's okay for you or not. But the resale potential for condominiums and single-family homes is a bit different. Single-family homes here are always popular. People always want to buy them. The inventory here is always pretty decent for sellers to resell a single-family home, depending on the location and condition and the price, obviously. But condominiums, we have a lot more condominiums. And if you know anything about real estate, supply and demand is always affecting how fast you can resell a property and at the price and obviously the appreciation. So single-family homes usually do a little bit better with regards to reselling down the road, but we do have a robust condominium market as well. And some neighborhoods come in a premium, so you really have to just determine what neighborhood you can afford to buy in, and maybe that means starting with a condominium, or maybe you can go straight to the single family home. I think there's a lot to think about when choosing what type of property to buy. I think ultimately you have to decide what you're most comfortable buying. I mean, both are great options in our area. It's a beautiful place to live, so buying a condo or a home in Miami is not a bad thing. So that's a good problem to have. Okay, I hope you found this video helpful. My name is Jamie Pretzi. This is my husband, Ogden Pretzi. Don't forget to download our relocation guide. You can find us on Instagram at the Pretzis, and we will see you soon.